Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Have you ever wondered why no one used the time turner to save Dumbledore? What if there was a way to prevent his death, but no one even tried? In today's video, you'll find out the real reason why the time turner couldn't bring Dumbledore back. When I first watched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, one question kept nagging at me. Was there really no way to save Dumbledore? My friends and I left the theatre discussing every possible solution. And soon we had an idea. Why didn't Harry use the time turner? He had used it before, he knew how it worked, and Dumbledore meant so much to him. Wouldn't he at least try? But he didn't. Why? The time turner is a small hourglass on a chain that allows the user to travel back in time. In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione used it to attend multiple classes at once. Professor McGonagall gave it to her as a special privilege. Later, she revealed its secret to Harry and Ron, and together they used it to save Buckbeak and Sirius Black. So why wasn't it even considered in The Half-Blood Prince when Snape killed Dumbledore? Harry was devastated. Dumbledore was more than just a headmaster to him. I couldn't stop thinking about this. After digging into the books and discussing with fellow fans, I found several possible answers. First, Dumbledore was already dying. He had destroyed one of Voldemort's Horcruxes and was cursed beyond healing. Maybe Harry understood that saving him would only delay the inevitable. Second, time travel in the wizarding world is dangerous. One of its biggest rules is that you can't interfere with your own past. Meeting yourself or changing major events could have catastrophic consequences. Perhaps Harry simply didn't know how to alter the timeline without making things worse. But even with these reasons, something still didn't add up. Then I found the real answer. In The Order of the Phoenix, during the battle at the Ministry of Magic, all the time turners in the Department of Mysteries were destroyed. That scene never made it into the movies, leaving many viewers unaware that time travel was no longer an option. So, in the end, it wasn't a plot hole. It was just a missing detail from the films. Imagine if Dumbledore had survived that night. Everything would have changed. Without his death, the war against Voldemort would have taken a different turn. Dumbledore was more than a wise old wizard. He was the greatest strategist in the fight against the Dark Lord. He understood Voldemort better than anyone, knew his weaknesses, and had already planned his downfall. If he had lived, perhaps the hunt for Horcruxes wouldn't have been such a desperate, dangerous mission. Think about it. Harry, Ron, and Hermione spent months struggling to track down and destroy Voldemort's Horcruxes, barely surviving along the way. They had little guidance and even less information. But Dumbledore, he already knew about most of them. He had spent years gathering clues, uncovering their locations, and figuring out how to destroy them. If he had been there to help, the trio wouldn't have had to stumble through the dark, making mistakes and nearly dying at every turn. What if he had been the one to find the Sword of Gryffindor? Instead of waiting for a desperate moment in the frozen lake, he could have led Harry straight to it. What if he had been there to guide them to the Hufflepuff Cup or the Diadem of Ravenclaw? What if he had been there to prepare Hogwarts for the final battle? Voldemort feared Dumbledore more than anyone. As long as he was alive, the Dark Lord was never truly safe. Dumbledore's presence alone was a deterrent, a force Voldemort had spent decades trying to escape. The moment he died, everything changed. The Death Eaters gained confidence. Hogwarts lost its strongest protector. Harry lost his greatest mentor. But let's go back to the time turner. Even if it had survived, could Harry have really used it to bring Dumbledore back? The rules of time travel in the wizarding world are strict. Hermione herself warned Harry not to be seen in the past, not to change events too drastically. The Ministry feared the consequences of unchecked time travel so much that they tightly controlled the time turners. There's also another issue. Would Dumbledore have even allowed it? He had already accepted his fate. He knew he was dying, and in many ways he had made peace with it. Would he have wanted Harry to risk everything to undo what had already happened? Dumbledore wasn't just killed, he planned his death. He knew Draco Malfoy had been tasked with murdering him. He knew Snape was the only one who could complete the act without breaking his vow. He allowed it to happen because he saw the bigger picture. If Harry had tried to go back in time and change that, what would have happened? Would he have altered the timeline so drastically that everything fell apart? What if Dumbledore had lived but Snape's cover was blown? What if Draco failed his task and Voldemort punished his family? What if the entire Battle of Hogwarts had played out differently, with more casualties, more destruction? It's tempting to imagine a world where Dumbledore survives, where he continues to lead, to guide, to protect. But maybe, just maybe, things had to happen exactly as they did. Harry needed to learn to stand on his own. He needed to grow beyond his reliance on Dumbledore. The battle against Voldemort was never meant to be fought by one great wizard. It was meant to be fought by many. And yet one question remains. What if someone else had used the Time Turner? What if Voldemort had gotten his hands on it? If a Time Turner had been available, the consequences could have been catastrophic. Imagine Voldemort going back to the past, eliminating his enemies before they ever had a chance to rise against him. Imagine him stopping the prophecy from ever being made, ensuring Harry Potter was never even born. Imagine him gathering an army of his past self, waging war with knowledge of the future. Time travel is dangerous, and in the wrong hands, it could have rewritten history in the darkest ways possible. So maybe, just maybe, the destruction of the Time Turners was the best thing that ever happened. Still, I can't help but wonder, what if?